Hey guys, it's John. I'm recording one more game for today, and I have Grandmaster Zuckertort from Israel. Mr. Zuckertort. Wonder who this is. Can't remember if I played this player before. It doesn't seem like it. Let's go Bishop G4. I'm facing the London quite frequently lately. It's surprising. Yeah, let's go C5. Put the knight on C6. I think I'll play Bishop D6 next move. Why don't we do that? Offer a trade of bishops. Pretty simplistic position. I mean, not a whole lot going on here. Queen B1. So that may be a precursor to jumping knight E5. So maybe H6 is a decent idea. Maybe bishop H5 is actually not bad either. Just to try to put the bishop on G6. Let's do that. That seems solid. Because I don't know if I want to play H6. Certainly don't want to play G6 yet, so maybe this is a good compromise. Okay, let's just go here. He can grab the bishop pair if he wants now with knight takes, but I think given the fact that there have been no pawns exchanged yet, I'm comfortable playing without the bishop pair in this position. He could also play F4 and try to prop up his knight. Could trade bishops and then play F4 as well. It's okay. I may throw in a capture on D4 though, to weaken his F4 pawn should it land there, because then his E3 pawn would be unable to take back on D4. I like this position. I think I've got good plans. Like if he castles, I might push E5, either before or after capture on G3. He does play F4. Okay, I'm really tempted to take now. Really like the look of that. Let's do it. Because if he takes with the E pawn, then I know F4 is going to be weaker. Also, I have the makings of a minority attack on the queen side. So I have incentive to pursue that plan as well. I could go knight H5. That would attack the bishop and also the pawn. He'll just castle, though. I don't know if that leads me anywhere in particular. I think the plan of just pushing B5 should be pretty good here. Let's do that. Just minority attack. Especially with his queen on B1. I figure he's going to have to waste some time. Let's just go A5. Expecting him to play B4. If he does, though, if he plays B4, I think I'll play A4. And he'll have that backward C3 pawn. Moreover, I think I might be denying his knight the use of the B3 square, so he can't get to C5. So that will be nice. Yeah, I'm liking my position. I think this is promising for black. I don't have many weaknesses to speak of. Okay, I think he's going to try to get the knight into E5 now. No, he'll probably be successful with that, but I predict he'll take once and then he'll play knight E5. I think is what he'll do. And if he does that, maybe I'll go queen C7. I won't take him yet. So I think queen C7 is useful in many respects. Just connects my rooks and defends this. He could play rook A6 then. But I think I'm equipped to deal with that. Yeah, this should not be a big deal. Okay, he plays queen C2. So if I take on C3, he probably will not take with his queen. I'm guessing. Yeah, I doubt we would see that. So let's go ahead and just take. Let's give him the backward pawn. Now I was thinking knight E7 might be good. Knight E7. And then it runs away from his knight, but now I've opened the C file, so I can play a rook to C8. I'm not sure which rook I'll play there. And also I can get this knight to f5. I think that would be good, because he's not really willing to part with his light square bishop, so I think the chances of bishop takes f5 are low, because that would just hand me the e4 square from my other knight. So he brings the rook into a6. So now if I play knight f5, I think he's going to double. Still, though. Or, okay, he might be using the c6 square. That might be what he's doing instead. Rook a6. It's not bad. Knight f5. Let's go knight f5. Let's just see what he does. My knight's bound for that square anyways. I lose some control over c6, but it's a price I'm willing to pay. Let's go queen here. So I'm threatening knight e3 now. I think he'll play rook a1. I think he'll try to get this other rook over. And now, I have to be cognizant of the fact that if this rook moves, he'll be threatening knight c6. Maybe rook a8. Rook a8's not bad. Just to stop him from bringing that rook down. We'll pre-move this guy. I like my position. It's nice and compact. I haven't succeeded in attacking c3 as much as I'd like, but I know that will be a weakness for the rest of the game for him. All right, how about we simplify now? Just a little bit.
Check.
So let's take. And then I'm thinking take on e5 and maybe jump this knight into e4. He's thinking a lot now. What if I play queen to b7 as well? Nah, better not overthink it. Let's just take. I think it's high time we took there. And jump the knight in. This is not a position where the two bishops are particularly good, so I'm fine doing this. Okay, let's go queen b7. If he takes on e4, that's a big blunder because of knight e7. Backward knight move. So he can't take that pawn. So he's got to play rook c5, doesn't he? He blundered into this. Yeah, I think I'm just winning a full rook now. Knight e7 is kind of an easy move to miss in time pressure. Yeah, there's nowhere his rook can retreat that will defend his queen. And he resigned. All right. Let's have a look. So London system, bishop f4. I played bishop g4. It's one of many decent moves for black. I think I play c5 more often, but I like the look of bishop g4 too. I didn't feel under any particular pressure in the opening. The position after queen b1 was a little intriguing because that's a good move. He's just lining up on my h7 pawn. Also, he's freeing himself from this pin, so knight e5 is now enabled. The reason he didn't go to c2 is because I think he anticipates that at some point there will be an exchange on d4, and I might be able to play, like with a rook on c8, I might be able to exploit the pressure here. So he's not as willing to do that. So queen b1, even though it keeps this rook a little bottled up, is probably the better square. And I played bishop h5. So as I said, I had to part with the light squared bishop and give him the bishop pair, but I don't mind this scenario so much because I'm solid, I've got many pawns on light squares. This is a structure we've seen often in my games from like Slav and positions like that, Scandinavian sometimes. And it really restricts his light square bishop. So if he doesn't do something to clamp down on e5, I will push e5 myself. So that's why he played f4. But I think after takes, I like my game a lot. He could take with the c-pawn, but that leaves e3 backward, and I think I'm more apt to be able to use the c-file than he is. So take. I will turn on the engine here just because I'm curious if it finds any better plan than what I did. I ended up playing rook b8, going for the minority attack with b5. Engine says knight h5. castle, and then g5. That's surprising. Yeah, I didn't think about too many kingside plans like this. Huh. That appears promising, though, because if he takes, I get to take on g3. Destroy his dark squared bishop, and then, something like that. This pawn is probably a goner. Yeah, this king is vulnerable. I did think about knight h5, I didn't look past castles and seeing that his pawn would be defended, but maybe I should have. Maybe even a move like just queen c7 here is okay. Yeah, doesn't that move just win me the pawn? I think it does. Yeah, he has trouble defending f4. Okay, so maybe that was more direct than the b5 plan I chose. So with white having this structure here, and experienced players watching this video will know, this structure with the base being on b2, c3 being the mid connecting pawn, and d4 being the head of the pawn structure, that is vulnerable to a minority attack. And it's called a minority attack because black is using less pawns, so my pawn's on d5, b7, and a7, really, this entire structure, to attack more pawns. Or if you wanted to just think about it in terms of his c, b, and a pawns versus my b and a, that's also a minority. He has a 3 versus 2 majority over there. And the thinking is that when I shove this pawn down the board, should I eventually get this pawn to b4, then he won't have any option that doesn't weaken his pawn structure. So let's just make some neutral move for white, like say this occurs. So I'm threatening to take. So his options are, he can either leave the pawn structure as it is, he can take me, or he can push past. And no matter which option he chooses, black is going to achieve some structural gain. Right? Certainly taking is probably bad because it isolates this pawn. There's a number of good ways I could play it, I'm sure. Probably I would just take this pawn right away and then take the d4 pawn. Pushing has the same problem, isolates the d pawn. So most often when this minority attack happens, they're leaving the pawn there. But again, let's just make some neutral move. Well, actually, let's say queen here. This is the structure we got in the game, where he has a backward pawn. And I have an isolated pawn here, but so does he. So the net gain, as far as pawn structure goes, was in black's favor compared to when the pawns were on b2 and b7 to start. Because we both took on an isolated pawn, but I inflicted a backward pawn on him. Okay, so the minority attack is a really powerful weapon. And it most often occurs like in this exact pawn structure. Okay. So if you have more questions about that, let me know in the comments. So b5, he played a3, I went a5. Now he could prevent me altogether from playing b4 by playing b4 himself, but that also has drawbacks. I would have played a4, and this pawn is almost a non-player. It's a backward pawn, and I like black's game here as well. I would start maneuvering my knights now. I'd probably play queen c7, knight e7, take aim at this pawn, maybe eventually knight f5, maybe move my dark square bishop and get that knight into d6. And then I'd have options of coming into e4 or c4. I think it's important that in this position, black push a4, because if I don't, let's say I take instead, two things happen. Like one, he gets use of the a file potentially, and also his knight can come to b3. I don't like the look of that because it enables him to go to c5. Whereas with the pawn on a4, the only way he can get to c5 successfully is if he got his knight to d3, which I think takes quite a few moves. I mean, you'd have to do like knight f3, e1, move the bishop, then get it to d3. By that point, I'd probably have my knight in on e4, attacking his c3 pawn. So he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, he doesn't want me to play b4, but playing b4 himself might even be worse. So hence, he didn't play it. And I got to execute this minority attack. I'll just check and see if I wasn't overlooking any tactics here. This is rook f8 is decent. Okay. Yeah, just building up. I think that would be the optimal position for my rooks. Having them on c8 and b8. That would be nice. I just took. He took this way. I am a little surprised the engine is showing advantage to white. Because I felt like I was playing this almost textbook style. But, you know, the computer disagrees. I'm not going to say I'm playing perfectly in this blitz game. Yeah, okay, so rook a8. I just wanted to stop him from bringing this rook into a6. Also, it's nice to move this because then if he were to move this rook away from c6, I don't have to reckon with the forking possibility of knight c6.
Check.
Yeah, so I like this. Here we were getting slightly low on time. I'm actually doing much better on time in these games than I normally do. And I jumped the knight into e4. I was talking about how this position was not a good one for the bishops. And I think part of that has to do with the pawn structure. There's not a lot of like far-flung pawns. The structure is fairly compact for both sides, especially my pawn structure. Like everything fits nicely together. So his bishops can't go and like attack or target wayward pawns that I have. My knights are nicely centralized too. They have good outposts. So he just immediately parted with one of his bishops. Otherwise, the combination of the two knights plus maybe my queen getting into g5, I could see that going south for him pretty fast if he does something like this. Yeah, he doesn't want to allow this to happen. Computer already giving a sizable advantage for black. So he took and then targeted that pawn. Yeah, and this was a nice move, queen b7. And he has to move the rook. He's got to play rook c5 or rook c4. But then I think on either of those I would play like move like rook a8, something like that. Yeah, and I love my activity here. Good knight, potentially dangerous pass pawn so long as I keep it defended. Queen and rook that are on good files. I guess he can play rook b4 and maybe gain some counterplay, but given the time situation and black having much more harmonious pieces, you take black here all the time and twice on Sunday. All right. So yeah, as it turned out, he did that and fell victim to knight e7. Nice retreating move. No way for him to avoid material loss. d5 would be a move to maybe try to gain the exchange, but I can just throw that move in first, attacking his queen, and I win the rook outright. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and please leave me any feedback in the comments. I'm pleased. I went 3-0 today, so good day today in Blitz. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.